Welcome to another exciting edition of How to Own a Young Earth Creationist, henceforth known as a YEC. Today, lesson number 3243, the You Weren't There So You Don't Know ploy.
Now I want you to remember this, boys and girls, something you'll never forget. Has any human being always been there, yes or no? No. Has any scientist always been there? No. Who's the only one who's always been there? God. Who knows everything? So, in a big loud voice, who should you always trust first, God or the scientist? God.
Follow along in your YEC Owner's Manual, pages 541 to 317. The logic, for lack of a better term, of this argument assumes that an eyewitness is needed to verify anything and everything, at least anything that might contradict a belief that the universe was created by the imaginary friend of a grown man. The implication being that since no one saw life begin or evolve, any explanation of those events is pure speculation at best, but more than likely is a deliberate attempt to destroy Christianity and force everyone into homosexual relationships. This argument is easily defeated, and ownership of the YEC can be taken with the greatest of expedience. Rebuttal 1. An eyewitness is not needed to determine past events. Deductive reasoning is in and of itself sufficient to determine past events. If you were to come home and find windows broken, your house in disarray, and valuables missing, it would not take a jet fuel genius to determine that your house had been burglarized while you were away. Though you did not witness the crime, deducing that a crime took place is not a problem at all. Determining who burglarized your house will require the use of experts who have been trained in uncovering evidence, also known as facts, in just such a situation. Since your house is not the first, nor will it be the last to be burglarized, techniques have been developed that have stood the test of fire by the court system and highly paid, very talented defense lawyers. Many techniques for discovering your perpetrator have been proposed over the years, but were, for one reason or another, discarded because they failed the test of their reliability. The same can be said when studying biological evolution, formation of the earth, or even abiogenesis. Several explanations are proposed and then thrown into the meat grinder of peer review. It is the sworn, moral, and ethical obligation of every scientist, regardless of their field of study, to critically examine every single theory in their area of expertise and intentionally look for flaws, fallacies, errors in reasoning, and physical evidence that contradicts the conclusion of the theory. Once a theory is thrown into the meat grinder of peer review, the only possible way out is to be completely obliterated and expelled through the anus of science as waste. Evolutionary biology has been in this meat grinder for 150 years and has withstood brutal scientific scrutiny. Its alleged contradictions of literal biblical interpretations have focused even more scrutiny on it than other scientific theories. And this added scrutiny has done nothing but reinforce its central tenets. Evolution is still in the meat grinder of peer review, but to date there has been no evidence provided that would suggest it is false. In fact, just the opposite is the case. As new evidence is uncovered, it is only reinforcing evolutionary theory. There does, however, come a point at which all reasonable attempts at falsification have been exhausted. It is therefore reasonable to ask exactly when that occurs, but that issue is far too complex to give an answer in anything resembling absolute terms. Using that question as a rhetorical device is an appeal to Loki's wager and can be easily defeated. For example, consider the following. When did the racism inherent in the United States during the 1950s actually come to an end? There is no absolute answer to that question, nor can there be. That issue is too complex, with so many facets, subtleties, and nuances, that an expectation of an answer in absolute terms is unreasonable and, quite frankly, stupid. Rebuttal 2. You have no eyewitnesses either. If evolutionary biology can be dismissed because lack of eyewitnesses, then the creation story can be dismissed on the same grounds. The creation story states that life began in a garden in which a creator had inexplicably placed a very dangerous tree that bore a fruit that was forbidden to eat. The creator also, for some mind-bogglingly questionable reason, allowed its arch-nemesis to come into the garden and jack around with the heads of the naive creation. Ignoring for the moment the reckless negligence on the part of the creator, the events in the Garden of Eden are not documented by any entity that was actually there. The story comes from a 5-part series of writings that are accepted in religious circles as to have been written by a man named Moses. Despite the fact that, aside from the Pentateuch, no other historical document ever mentions this man as being anything other than a literary character, the writings of Moses are a second-hand account of the events of the creation story. The arguably fictitious character of Moses gains knowledge of the creation story because the same creator who let a talking snake convince a woman to eat from a magical tree telepathically communicated the story to him while disguised as a burning bush. The Pentateuch also goes on to offer such questionable musings as rabbits chewing their cud, birds and insects having 4 legs, and showing streaked sticks to goats will make them have streaked offspring. Now that it has been established that both sides lack eyewitness accounts, what is more likely? Choice A body of knowledge resulting from millions of hours of research, a rich and ever-growing fossil record, and a scientific theory subjected to the brutal process of peer review that can be demonstrated as accurate by all available physical evidence. Or B, a 5,000-year-old text whose authors are questionable at best, that makes repeated, ridiculous, and demonstrably factual errors and features detailed instructions as how to properly conduct an animal sacrifices. Use any of the above rebuttals when confronted with the "you weren't there so you don't know" ploy, and you can be sure to take possession of your new YEC with the greatest of expedience. And remember, always have your YEC spayed and or neutered. This is Jaguar Jones saying good day, pangolins are totally gay, and happy owning.